Hello there and welcome back to the Eastern Kitchen. Today we're making 3 of our favorite pumpkin recipes that are desserts. Last time we just made the pumpkin puree, so we thought this time it would be nice to show a couple of our favorite recipes. So again, we have 3 different desserts that we'll be making. We have pumpkin cheesecake squares, we have pumpkin muffins, and to start off with, we have pumpkin cookies.
The first recipe that we're going to share is called pumpkin cheesecake cookies. I found this recipe about 3 years ago and it became one of my favorite cookie recipes. And I'll leave the link for the recipe in the description below. This recipe that we'll be making has 3 parts to it. The first part is making the cookie dough. Second part is making the cream cheese filling. And the third part is making the sugar mixture to roll the cookies in. So for the first part, the cookie dough, we're going to start with the dry ingredients, and it needs 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/4 teaspoon of ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And for the wet ingredients, we'll need half a cup of unsalted butter at room temperature, half a cup of light brown sugar, 1/4 cup of sugar, and 1/3 cup of pumpkin puree.
You mentioned a couple of tricks to get a drier puree. How was that?
Yeah, so one would be to boil it on the stove on a low heat until the moisture evaporates and stir it. And another method would be, while the puree is still at room temperature, you could put a paper towel on top and it'll absorb the moisture, and you could do this, repeat this 2 or 3 times. I did follow the ingredients to the recipe. The only thing that I changed was reducing the amount of sugar in the cookie dough, but I'll leave the link for the original recipe in the description. It's from Shell Sweets. Now this recipe says that it does 12 cookies, but because our cookie scoop is more on the medium size, it did 16 cookies for us.
Now that we're done mixing up the dough and dividing it up, we're going to chill it. That way we can stuff it with the cream cheese mixture.
For the cream cheese mixture, which will be the filling of the cookie, you'll need 3/4 cup of cream cheese that's sitting at room temperature, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Once it's mixed well, you could use 2 spoons in order to form 12 balls of the cheese filling mixture. You could put them over a tray that has parchment paper on it, and then you can put them in the freezer to chill. I find that they become hard enough to handle in about 2 hours in the freezer.
So now we're going to start on the muffins. So we have the oven preheating at 350, and we're going to bake the muffins in the oven for about 20 minutes. But I always check regardless with the toothpick just to make sure that it comes out cleanly. So what we're going to start with is we have 3 cups of pumpkin puree in the bowl. This batch has a little bit more moisture in it. That's fine. The muffins, we like having that extra moisture in there. So to start, I like to mix in the sugar. Specifically start with the brown sugar because I like to make sure that the lumps all get mixed in thoroughly. And if I add it later, I find that it just doesn't mix in as well. So the brown sugar is the first thing that I want to mix into the puree. So I'll just get that started. So again, we'll let that mix. Then we can add in the white sugar. So that was 1.5 cups of brown sugar. We'll mix in 1 cup of white sugar. There we go. Perfect. So those 2 are mixed in. Then we have 1 cup of oil. You can use butter. I find that the butter makes it taste a little bit more, just feel a little bit more greasy, so I prefer using the oil. So we're going to add 1 cup of that. And we can just let that mix up. I'll also add in the vanilla here and the eggs. So we have 4 eggs. We're doing a double recipe, so everything here can be cut in half. The recipe for doing 2 is going to be 2 dozen. So what we're making is 2 dozen. If you want to do just 1 dozen, you can cut everything in half. So we have 4 eggs here. Let those mix in. Then we have vanilla. With the vanilla, we're going to be adding 2 teaspoons. What I'm doing is just mixing all the wet stuff in here first. The only dry ingredient I'm really adding to the wet mixture is the brown sugar and the white sugar, just to make sure that those thoroughly get mixed and dissolved, because otherwise we'll have lumps in it and I hate dealing with that. So then into the bowl we're going to mix 1.5 cups of flour. No, 3.5 cups. I'll do 2 tablespoons of the pumpkin spice mixture we made. The pumpkin spice mixture, I made it in the first time I made the recipe. I made this because I didn't have pumpkin spice. I would have just bought store-bought if I was planning ahead. However, after doing this and having other friends make the same recipe with the store-bought, we found out that it really does make a difference. So if you want to make your own, it sounds silly because you're already using store-bought spices, but it really does make a difference. And the nice thing is you can kind of customize the mixture to the way you like it. So we'll add 2 tablespoons of the pumpkin spice mixture into the flour mixture here. And again, you can use store-bought, but if you mix it yourself, we really found it did make a nice difference. And we'll have the specific spices that we mixed into this in the link down below.
I did 3.5 half cups, so I'm gonna continue.
Okay, so we've added 4 tablespoons of the pumpkin spice mixture. We'll add 2 extra, sorry, not 2, we're doubling it. So 4 extra teaspoons of cinnamon. Perfect. And we'll do another 4 teaspoons of baking powder. There. And then we'll add a teaspoon of salt. Upon looking back at the play camera, we realized that poor Danielle lost count of the flour that she added. Unfortunately, there was a miscount of the amount of flour put in. And I thought initially of just taking half the flour out and putting half the mixture of other spices back in. Danielle has a simpler solution. We just double everything else that we put into the dry mixture and then take half of it out to keep things the same. We've mixed thoroughly the spices in here. Very thoroughly. Just like to mix that up nice and well. Now we could add this in and then the chips, but we don't do that just because we want to make sure that the chips don't sink down. So this is something I learned from my mom. Putting these, like the chocolate chips, these are butterscotch chips, but putting raisins, dried fruit, or nuts into a batter. It's good to put it into the dry ingredients first, coat them all in flour, and that helps prevent them from sinking to the bottom as they're getting cooked or as they're in the tins waiting to be cooked. You can use raisins, you could put nuts in it, you could put chocolate chips. We really like the butterscotch chips. Those are our favorites so far with the pumpkin muffins. They just seem to go really well together. We also sometimes put white chocolate chips in there and sometimes crushed walnuts or pecans on, but today we're just doing the butterscotch chips. We did 2 cups of butterscotch chips into the flour, mixed it up.
Now we'll put the muffin batter in the oven at 350 Fahrenheit for 20 minutes, and we'll do a toothpick test to make sure it comes out clean. While the muffins are baking in the oven, we're about to assemble our cookies. And before we do so, you'll need to prepare a sugar mixture, and it is 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. I prepared it ahead of time that day, but we're about to use it now to assemble the cookies. To assemble the cookie, you could flatten the cookie dough ball in the palm of your hand and place the cheesecake filling, which is already frozen at this point, in the center of the flattened cookie dough, and then start wrapping the cookie dough around the filling until it's properly sealed. Afterwards, you can roll it in the sugar mixture and put it in the tray. And when putting it in the tray, make sure you leave enough space because this cookie dough will expand a lot.
Perfect, pretty much.
Now that the pumpkin muffins are done, we're gonna put the pumpkin cookies in, and we're gonna bake them at 350 Fahrenheit. The recipe says to bake them between 16 to 19 minutes.
So the muffins are out of the oven now. We're just gonna let those cool before we take them and put them on the racks, because if I take them out right away and put them on the racks, I find that they tend to deform a little bit. So it's nice just to let them cool a little bit in the trays. Danielle has the cookies in the oven, and now we're gonna start on the pumpkin squares.
We're gonna make 2 separate fillings and then we're gonna swirl them at the end. I'm not gonna start with the base just because we need the oven for that, and now we still have stuff in the oven. So Logan is working on the pumpkin filling and I'm gonna do the cream cheese filling. So for the cream cheese filling, I have 2 packs of cream cheese, 250 grams each. And I have a cup of white sugar that I'll add to it. I'm gonna mix it, whisk it, and then I'm gonna add the rest of the ingredients to it.
So I'm gonna add in 1.5 cups of puree. Danielle already measured that out. So do 2 teaspoons of the pumpkin spice mixture. And then we'll do a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And then we're gonna do a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then lastly, we're gonna put in cornstarch. We're gonna put in 1.5 tablespoons of that. And that'll help. We're just gonna mix this all till, again, it's thoroughly incorporated and it's smooth. So into the mixture so far on my end, Danielle's measured out 1.5 cups of pumpkin puree. We've put in 2 teaspoons of the pumpkin pie, the pumpkin spice. We've put in 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and we're putting in 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And lastly, we're gonna put in 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch.
And for me, I have the 2 cream cheese packages and 1 cup of sugar, and I'm gonna start mixing them. To that, I will add about 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract and 1 cup of full-fat sour cream. The last thing that I'll add here is the 3 eggs. When adding the eggs, it's important to avoid over mixing it because we don't want to allow air to get into it. For the base, you'll need 2.5 cups of graham cracker, 1/2 cup of butter. If you use unsalted butter, you could add a little bit of salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Once the butter and the crumbs are mixed well, you could use your fingers or a spatula to flatten the base and then bake it in the oven at 350 Fahrenheit for about 5 to 10 minutes. Afterwards, you can start adding the filling, and then you can swirl the filling, reduce the oven temperature to 325 Fahrenheit, and this helps to avoid having cracks on top, and put it to bake for about 45 minutes. And once it's done, do not immediately remove it. Let it sit in the oven for half an hour with the door gradually open for it to cool down slowly to avoid having cracks on top.
So we finished with the muffins, the cookies, and the squares, all the different desserts that we really enjoy. These are our favorite pumpkin recipes. What we'll do is we'll have the recipes for each of these down below in the description. We started with the cookies, we baked the muffins first, and then we finished off with the squares. These just needed time to chill, the crust needed to bake. So I guess time-wise, these were almost the fastest just to prepare and get out of the way.
The muffins are the easiest to do.
Because we started on the batter second. We started on this dough, let it chill, and then we worked on the batter and baked these by the time these were ready to get cooked as well. So we cut a cookie in half here, and we're both going to try that. We already know how amazing the muffins are, so there's not even a need for us to taste test those.
You know, the cookies are amazing too. I don't need to try them. You know they're great.
We'll see.
No, I know. I don't need to see. I know they're great. This is my favorite pumpkin cookie recipe. I know it's really good.
It's your only pumpkin cookie recipe.
That's how good it is. I don't
Right.
need to find another recipe.
Mm-hmm. Mmm. They are good with the cream cheese in them.
If you want to try anything, try the pumpkin muffins because they're
Why?
the easiest to make. Everything else takes a lot of work. The pumpkin muffins are absolutely worth it. They're very easy to make and they're just as delicious.
My favorite dessert of all of these, the muffins or the squares, because another thing I just absolutely love is cheesecake, and that's similar to cheesecake to me, so I love it for that. Danielle's personal favorite is the cookies.
What was funny about it?
Because I'm trying to look for a reason to highlight a good thing about them. Danielle really likes what she made.
What do you not like about the cookies?
I do like them. The muffins are really nice because they're probably the easiest and the fastest to make. Very simple. Danielle really loves the cookies. I don't know what else to say.
We appreciate taking the...
She can't even say that. She can't honestly say she appreciates it. You're really thinking hard about this. We appreciate everyone taking the time to stop and watch our video. We hope that everybody can enjoy it and perhaps enjoy the recipes that we share. And until next time, take care.